On Money Watch, it was a relatively flat day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones capped off the day up around 82 points.
The Nasdaq and S&P also ended the day relatively flat. Let's bring in Rachel Siegel. She's an economics correspondent for The Washington Post. Hi there, Rachel. Thanks very much for being with us. So what was driving the markets today?
Well, the markets for months now have been grappling with how to interpret signs that policymakers are giving about what they will do to control inflation. Markets have seen a really blistering start to the first half of this year, and that's because there is so much anxiety that we all feel, but is certainly also being reflected in the markets about whether the Federal Reserve can control inflation, whether a recession is on the horizon, and really what is to come given how long we've been in this kind of uncertainty.
And Rachel, earlier today, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said he would not allow inflation to take hold of the economy for the long term. As you know, the Fed has raised interest rates to try and combat inflation. So do you think the Fed is on the right track here, or does it need to take more significant steps to finally lower prices?
Well, what we're all certainly looking for is not just the messaging that's coming from Fed Chair Powell and other Fed leaders, but the action. It's certainly been a delayed message to hear that the Fed is fallen behind the curve on inflation, that they have a lot of catching up to do. And we know that they have committed to a really aggressive set of interest rate hikes to do all that they can to control inflation. The problem, though, is that this acknowledgement that they are late and that they need to get control of inflation now is somewhat belated. And in the meantime, prices are rising in ways that every single American feels in their daily life. And it's becoming increasingly unclear as to whether an interest rate hike can affect the kind of change that we really need to see in the economy right now.
Yeah, Chairman Powell also said he believes it is possible to fight inflation without hurting the job market. But he added a caveat saying there's no guarantee. What's your sense, Rachel? Do you think the economy will suffer in the second half of the year?
Well, the brutal reality is that slowing the economy cannot be done with any sort of precision. The Federal Reserve really only has one tool. It's raising interest rates, and that is a famously blunt tool. They can't zoom in on the exact point in the economy where they can lower inflation just enough without slowing the economy down too much. And what happens if the economy slows down too much is that could lead to layoffs. It could lead to the unemployment rate going up. It could lead to the kinds of consequences that the Fed wants to avoid to take care of this other problem in the economy. Now, it's certainly the intention for the Fed to avoid that kind of consequence, but whether or not they're able to pull it off has become much, much harder with time.
It's certainly tricky to achieve that soft landing that we keep hearing about. All right. Well, Rachel Siegel, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.